spending in the 2015-2016 elections for Uganda's economy.
Musa Lwanga from the Economic Policy Research Center, and I have a simple task of trying to look at the economic implications of the election spending in Uganda. I want us to look at just one slide, which we'll put here because of time. I'm just going to show you one slide. And my job is simple. I'm going to try to look at two periods. The 2010-11 election and the 2016 presidential election, and then try to see, compare and contrast. Before I show you the slide, in economics there is what we call a political business cycle, and it has been put differently by the different presenters before, that an election begins a year or two before the actual voting. And in Uganda we've seen that just like in many countries, before an election, governments usually have an expansionary monetary and fiscal policy, in that you have an increase in government spending. The idea is that if you stimulate the economy before an election, one, you reduce unemployment, but on the other hand, you will increase incomes. However, although this has, in most cases, short-term benefits, whereby people seem richer. If I asked you today, do you feel richer today than you were 6 months ago? Majority of Uganda will tell you, I don't know where the money has gone. Because in the short term, before an election, people seem to feel like they are richer because of the expansionary monetary and fiscal policies. Now let's look at what Uganda actually does. This time I'm only looking, because the fiscal side has been presented, I'm going to look at the monetary side. If you look at the graph, below is the credit to government by the central bank. Initially, now it's in the statistics presented as net credit to government, just like that. Initially, before the 2010 elections or 2011 elections, it used to be presented as claims by the central bank on the central government. So that was money that was borrowed or lent to government by the central bank. Normally, the best way or the easiest way for central bank to lend to government is by printing money. In 2009, we see government had a surplus. That means government had deposits with the central bank. Then we see government reducing those deposits and then actually ending up borrowing. Of course, the consequences were dire. We saw inflation going up, we saw interest rates going up, and we almost had an economic crisis. The central bank moved in, increased interest rates, and the consequences we saw. Now we move to the new election. As one of my colleagues said before, it was staggered, unlike the previous one. This election, we had government borrowing starting very early. June 2013, government started to borrow, money increased, government continued to borrow. Now what happened immediately? 2 months, 3 months after government started borrowing heavily, the exchange rate depreciated immediately. Now, there are other factors that led to the depreciation of the exchange rate, but we've done our own calculations and tried to compare that with Kenya. And our depreciation is way far faster than what was happening elsewhere. So what did the central bank do as soon as the exchange rate started to depreciate? Because all these macroeconomic variables feed into one another. They decided to raise the interest rate. At that point, inflation was below 2%. But of course, there were expectations that government is increasing its spending with money that was already coming from the central bank, and definitely we're going to have a repeat of 2010. as the central bank increased its central bank rate, we saw that inflation jumped from 2 within 4 months or 3 to around 10% by December 2015. Of course, the central bank continued to push the central bank rate from, well, it started from 11% almost to 16%, then 17%. This was in anticipation of what would happen if this money that was being spent on campaigns got into circulation. This has a number of implications. What happened? As soon as the central bank rate went up, so did the lending interest rates. Now, lending interest rates have a big bearing on business and the cost of capital. So what happens, there are a number of things that happen with this kind of behavior from the central bank, which I could look at. On the bank side, if you look at the statistics, non-performing loans have increased from around 4% to 9% as a share of total loans. But also on the farm side, we have an increase in the cost of production, which means there will be a reduction in employment. Going forward, we might see a reduction in private investment. As we've seen from the statistics, not presented here but I've looked at, already private credit or credit to the private sector has been falling. Then on the household side, due to the depreciation that came with the increase in money in circulation, prices of imported goods increased. Of course, for some of you who have used umeme and national water, you would realize that at some point, because our utilities are pegged to the dollar, even your bills, monthly bills were increasing. So that's on the household side. But also, there will be loss of revenue due to increased unemployment arising from lack of investment from the private sector. Now, so many people have asked me a question. If the graph shows that government this time even borrowed more than it borrowed before, why have we had no inflation? Well, the situation has only 3 different variables. 1, Bank of Uganda woke up early and raised the interest rate. That's 1. 2, internationally, oil prices have been very low. Of course, for most of you who drive, you realize that you haven't seen that on the pump prices. However, prices fell from over 100 to, well, below 40%. Why you didn't see a change on the pump prices is because, well, the exchange rate had already depreciated. And basically, that prevented you from enjoying the benefits of falling international oil prices. 2 or 3, you had a drought coinciding with the last or the 2010 election. This time you've had plenty of food. The food inflation almost is 30% of the total consumer price index, and therefore it's not by government policy, it's by God's luck that we had good weather. That's why we were able to escape inflation this time. So, if I would summarize, I mean, there are 2 things that we have to look at and we should expect in future. 1, there is a chance that the economy will slow down. It will not slow down as much as it did in the other election for 2 reasons. 1, the good weather. 2, the fact that Bank of Uganda has pushed inflation down before it actually. But the real effect on the slowdown is going to be on private investment. The cost of capital is high, and it's going to stay high for some time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lwanga. And thank you very much. Can we give a big round of applause to all the three